Hello, everyone. Thanks for watching us here on our UGA Sports YouTube channel. That's Brent Rollins. I'm Dayne Young. We co-host a piece at UGAsports.com called Film Don't Lie. But as we approach Georgia's season, really this offseason, we've been doing this piece, this series of top returning players based off of Georgia's PFF grades. We say it every time, Brent. These are not our personal rankings or anything like that. This is what PFF came up with in the data. And I guess let's get that list running at the bottom of the screen. That's also going to reveal who we're talking about today. And it's a guy that is, you can't ignore him when you watch the film.
No, you can't at all. And when you look at this in this list, the top two of the top three, I think you can make an argument that they're in terms of best player. Like if we wanted to go best player, like two of the top three, I think will be right. One, I think he's in there. He's in that category and close, but not necessarily, I would say, if you wanted to rank them. But it's a couple great things when thinking about doing this video and looking back at the clips with Carter is, one, football is here tomorrow for Georgia. You know, it's starting. It's kind of getting here, and it's good to really get back into the season part of it.
Is that a good second thing plug that our coverage at UGAsports.com will be comprehensive, and we'll have a ton of people over around that part of campus talking with Kirby Smart and players and checking out practice. So UGAsports.com, you can check it out for free for this month. Info
for free, yes.
Yeah.
Perfect plug. Perfect time for that plug. But the second thing I thought with this is we're going to keep these clips because we're probably going to be doing this exact type of breakdown in however many months, whenever March rolls around, April rolls around, we start doing these videos that we usually do preparing or looking at Bulldogs that are going to be in the draft, because he's going to be a top 5 pick. He could have been a top 2-3 pick this past draft, I think, if he's in the draft itself. But he's a dominant force. We're going to sort of shower him with all kinds of praise, and rightfully so.
There's not much bad you can say. Obviously, Georgia has the best player on offense and defense. I think Jalen Carter is by far Georgia's best defender. And like you said, I think that was probably the case last year too. And that was a team that just was loaded with NFL talent. Out of high school, Apopka, Florida, Apopka High School, defensive tackle, 6'4", 270 is what he was listed at. All the big guys wanted him.
Well, the interesting thing, I remember correctly, and this is one, when you're right, oftentimes you're really right. Like Coach Donham was insanely right when it comes to Jalen Carter. And there's a clip out there, you can find somewhere on Twitter or the internet about him just talking about what kind of player he thought Carter was going to be. And this was a year before he even stepped foot on campus. And I think he subsequently shot up the recruiting rankings towards the end, if I remember right, because they saw what Coach Donham saw, and he's been dynamite from day one.
Now, there's a lot of factors at play here, but Trey Scott's name and reputation has really elevated. I would say with two guys, but in particular Jalen Carter in that recruitment, but then Jordan Davis's development and his body conditioning, and obviously having Trayvon Walker involved. And I know that he played a little bit of a different role, but those three guys, Trey Scott's resume looks mighty fine.
Yes, whatever raise he got, because he got one, I'm sure. It was well earned.
So 6'4", 270 is what Jalen Carter was listed at as a recruit. If you go over to the newly revamped GeorgiaDogs.com, apparently he is shrunk an inch and gained 40 pounds. And so typically what that means is that those estimates out of high school, not exactly right, but I do think that he's bigger. This guy's just an athlete, man. He can do most anything you want him to do, but you want him staying in the trenches and mauling through people.
Yeah, supreme athlete, especially for the position that he plays. Like, it just doesn't get much better athletically than him at that size.
And one thing that we talk about with guys this high on the list, up to this point, to get this high, you're statistically excellent as well as your tape being awesome. Yes. I do think that as the focus, because all these other coaches see the same tape that we do, and they're like, yeah, we know about Jalen Carter. You don't have to tell us. We know about Brock Bowers. You don't have to tell us. They're going to be devising game plans to mitigate those weapons that Georgia has. It's going to open up things for other players, but Jalen Carter's job gets harder this year as the focus is more on him.
Yeah, and I think you could also term him, to me, the most important player on the team this fall. Because Nolan Smith, yes, we just talked about him last week as an edge guy, but what Carter brings as a dominant interior presence and just that guy that a offense has to always plan for, given that there aren't also those same players beside him, like last year with Wyatt and Davis and Trayvon and Nolan and Carter there as well. Like the game plan was just, all right, let's be the best we can be. We're not going to account for one guy. Right now, we don't know who those other guys are going to be. I mean, we have names that we think are going to get the snaps and things like that. But in terms of the impact, you're not going to get I don't think you're going to get the consistent impact. So from him, from an importance standpoint, I think he might be the top of the list in terms of most important on the team.
In this game that Georgia had against Clemson, you saw 2 top 10 defensive linemen. Really, I guess multiple now.
3.
I'm thinking Breezy on the other side too.
You got Trayvon and Miles Murphy too. I mean, it's littered with talent in this game.
Yeah, especially on the defensive side. You see his number written there, right?
Yes.
Beautiful.
88. I like the 88, by the way. I think it's a good number for him.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I'm an athlete. I could play tight end really if you wanted me to, kind of number.
Hey, you might see him on offense a little bit. We've seen it before. We don't have that clip involved in here. We're focused on defense and what he does at the line of scrimmage.
And we've seen this time and time again, but in a one-on-one situation, especially with guards, he just can't be blocked. He's that quick. He has an arsenal of hand usage moves, swim, rip type moves. Here it's a rip where he hits with the right hand, rips through with the left, and then just uses his strength to basically make DJU get rid of the ball really, really quickly.
Say it. Ui Ungalale. Say it. You can do it.
Ui Ungalale.
Yeah.
There we go.
We don't have to do that as much this year unless they're in the playoff, which I did have a Clemson fan tell me that they think that Georgia ruined DJ Uiagalelei, and that's why the season unraveled from there because they had played Georgia first.
I think there's very much a legitimacy to that. I think the offensive coordinator didn't help, but yes, I think there was a legitimacy to what you just – because, 7 sacks in the game?
Yeah.
But, with Carter –
he's just strong, man.
Yes, the strength, the quickness, it's all there. It's all – there's a reason you're seeing his name as, put up there in terms of the odds for the number 1 pick next year or top 5, top 10 at worst in terms of mock drafts. But he actually tied for the team lead in quarterback pressures, which is sacks plus hits plus hurries.
Hard to do from that position. Usually that's edge guys.
Yes, usually that's edge guys. But he also did it, like he tied with Trayvon, but he did it in 117 less pass rush snaps. Mm-hmm. So his play on a play-by-play basis, his impact was the most on the defense.
Before we get to this next play, I should probably acknowledge that there's a chance you're hearing Mother Nature in the background of where I'm at. I usually do these on my back deck out here in Bogart, Georgia right now. It is thundering in the area. It's pretty rough about an hour ago. But
yes, a lot of rain recently.
So if people hear that, it's the thunder, and you can think it's Jalen Carter moving Clemson players because it does probably fit what we're watching as we don't have sound. All right.
Very much so.
Again, I love this angle.
Which, by the way, running back just said, "Yeah, I'm not gonna." He's right there, but I think I'm just going to sneak out into the route maybe instead of trying to help block him. But when you look at pass
they call
rush,
that a business decision, right?
Yes, that was very much a business decision, because it looked like he actually kind of, I see him, but maybe thought he was getting blocked. But with Carter here, and really just pass rush in general, in a one-on-one situation, it's oftentimes like hoops. And you got to have, what are your moves and what does your footwork do? Yes, the back says, all right, I'm just going to get out there and then let this guy kill my quarterback.
But Coach, I was going for a pass. I was going for a pass, Coach.
The spot to pause it is right there. Ooh, just a little bit back. It's right after he engages the guard, a little bit further back. Right. Let's see. As we get close, pause right here. So right there, he was even and almost in the frame of 74. but his left foot, the ginormous step that he gets with his left foot right there. We always, anytime we talk about receivers, DBs, any player, if you're going to make a move and a step, get somewhere with that step. Because now, like from where he was to where he is now, there's so much ground that a lesser athlete, because the offensive lineman is going to be a lesser athlete than him more often than not, has to cover. And they just don't have a chance. So look where he is right there. He's in essence kind of blocked right there. But this next move and the one step that he takes where he really gets somewhere. And that's like coaching kids at any sort of level. You take that step, get somewhere with that first big step. Like if you're a receiver, chop, you take that first step, get somewhere with it and get a lot of ground with that step. And he does this consistently. And then it's a swim move. I'm stronger, and I'm just going to finish in your lap here, DJU.
He knows how to use the forward momentum of his body so well. Because look how smooth this is. This only takes about 2 seconds from engage, disengage, tackle. Like that's so quick if you're a quarterback, and why DJ kind of panicked here. But like boom, boom, tackle. Like
you think about
control of his body weight moving in a certain direction, and the fact that he has that, and he can also pivot and go another way. That's special stuff, man.
When we see that in the league at the NFL level with a certain guy who's basically the best player in football, Aaron Donald, but he's a lot lower to the ground. Even Grady Jarrett to that extent, a lot lower to the ground. Not nearly as big as Carter is. And you get that type of fluidity that you're talking about and quickness in a 310-pound, 6'3" body. That's just insane.
This was a little bit unfair for Jalen Carter to get to play against Vanderbilt.
So in my notes for this play, I wrote just not fair. That's exactly what it's like the freshman on the high school team going against like the all-state senior.
This is one of those that you're like, does Vanderbilt really belong in this game?
Conference.
Sport.
Other sports they do. It's just not football yet.
Yeah,
or
just
ever.
The sport.
But this is just, and by the way, this is third down. Like they just like, all right, we got no chance. We got no chance. We're just going to run a draw. But that play, you're going to see that play even no matter what he does this season. The draft guys are probably still going to go back and show this play just to show the strength, and then the running back goes backwards, not straight down, not forward at all, just backwards.
It hyped up Dan Jackson, that's for sure.
Yes, it did. And it's just not fair. Him at that level versus that level, not fair.
I really don't know what else to say about it. It's just complete and utter domination.
And amazingly, when you look at his season last year, in the 15 games, there were only 2 games that he didn't have a quarterback pressure. It's Charleston Southern and Georgia Tech. So 2 of the sort of weaker opponents, he just didn't get the chance to really shine or do anything legitimate.
Is that what we're going to go with?
I would go that, yes.
Another one against Vandy, just because why not?
Well, and this is one where you think, all right, so the right guard is actually trying to reach Carter's right shoulder there. And he almost looks like he's going to try and cut him because look at the right tackle cuts Nakobe, who's right beside him. And Carter's just like 2 in terms of recognition first and then quickness second. He just steps out of the way, and the lineman has nothing to do but fall in his face. And then he absolutely clotheslines the running back and stops him in his track. But that little quick step, and the instincts to be able to do that and see that, just next level.
I'm going to pause this on this second angle here. And it's a similar angle. But just how terrifying this has to be for the running back right there.
It's not a good place to be. He's probably got his eyes forward, but then realizes at the last second, this guy's about to. Yeah, that's not.
So this is an important point, though, and I think people think about this with running backs a lot because Le'Veon Bell did this. When you talk about like patience from a player and understanding how people are going to try to attack you and what that can open up. So Vanderbilt knows in the situation, we don't have the horses to hang with these cats. So they're kind of going for one swipe. Let's see if we can either get in the way or knock them off kilter and just scoot past them. which is not a terrible strategy.
Or cut him, or just straight cut him.
Yeah, well, that's as likely the case here too. But like you were saying, let's try to just get here and stop him from moving forward, or at least try to shove him out here, try to do it for half a second. You know it's a mismatch.
Get in
the
the way.
Carter here is not like full-on aggression from the start. Like, the fact that he can see that with one hand, just kind of swipe it to the side and still be in the attacking position. Like, a lot of defensive linemen are thinking, go, 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 go immediately. Like, that's a lot of thinking and recognition that he handles very quickly to be able to make this play. So I hope that people see this is a cerebral win for Jalen Carter as much as it is a physical one.
Yep. 100%.
And I mean, I just swipe, stand up,
destroy.
Yeah. And he makes it even look like it's so easy that like a lot of players don't get this part right. And it really does start with his footwork, which is just impeccable.
And by the way, that might be your 4-down lineman or part of your 4-down lineman game one.
Yeah.
That's him, Stackhouse, Nolan Smith, and Tremel Walthour on the field right there.
That worked out pretty good. Poor Vandy. This wasn't much better for South Carolina, but
no, he's so quick. The quickness is just not fair. And then get out of my way. Now the QB, old Zeb, does a good job. Maybe that's Doty. Yeah, Doty at this point. Yeah. I think you're right. Does a nice job of slightly getting away. And by the way, when you think about Carter's grade, his tackling grade, I think he had 7 missed tackles. He was one of the team leaders in missed tackles. If it wasn't for that, his grade's in the 90s. And, we're talking about one of the highest graded defenders in all of college football.
Tell me about this move that he's pulling off here, because it's obviously a real quick snatch.
Yeah, and it's just that power with the right arm, and then boom, accelerate. And this one, I think the right guard helps a lot just by being bad, but and a little bit, he got a little more two-hand, and a lot of times you'll see him. And we'll see it later, I think, against Kentucky. The swim move that he has is next level. We saw the rip, hit and rip against Clemson. So plethora of moves that he has. Like even when you think about, look at the pass rush grade though, and I tweeted this out the other day. The 90 pass rush grade, that mark, that's elite in terms of our grading, elite of all elite, has only been done by interior defenders, defensive tackle with nose guard types, 13 times or 13 players in the Power 5, the entirety of the PFF grading. So that's 8 years now.
Wow.
8 of those guys in the SEC. And most of the guys that did it, Quinnen Williams, Chris Jones, who's a beast now in the league, Jeffrey Simmons, like high first-round draft pick type guys.
This game against Auburn is pretty interesting because you have to think that Mike Bobo, now on Georgia's team as an analyst, is thinking, oh, thank God I don't have to do that again.
Don't want to have to worry about blocking this guy. Now, this one is one where you might want to block him because I think –
that's a good idea.
I think it's the tackle or is it the guard. I think
right guard.
Thinks he's getting his hell he just kind of falls actually. But I thought he was getting – the player himself thought he was going to get some help, and he didn't. But it was just like, get out of my way, and then plant the running back.
Because, even with a blocker, you got Jalen here, you got Nakobe here, and you got Nolan Smith ready to go. Rut-row.
Yeah, and that's when you think about teams and what they're going to try to do from a running the ball perspective on Georgia's defense this year. Georgia, especially under Kirby Smart, their teams aren't going to run the ball on them. They're only going to run the ball on them if Georgia wants them to run the ball on them because they are so sound from a gap integrity standpoint. It's just teach tape after teach tape. And we've talked about this before, even maybe with a little bit with Nolan Smith, but I don't see Georgia's defense falling off in a big manner, specifically in the running game. And I think some of the just offenses in the passing games and I think you're going to get inexperiences in the middle of the field, possibly, but I don't think they're going to get run all over just because they're too sound. They're coached too well, and they play with obviously the players that they have.
I like the point that you made there, that unless Georgia wants them to, because there are games on the schedule, and I keep going back to this in commentary that I give. But Mississippi State is one of those where I could see the Mississippi State breaking off a couple 12, 13-yard runs because Georgia's working so hard to stop the 3-yard pass.
Right.
That happens
Very
sometimes, just because that's going to be a different game. That's a few months down the line. Back to Jalen Carter. And also, this is a good rep for Devontae Wyatt.
Yep. And this is the same point that I made against Clemson in the Clemson clip you make here. Look at the distance that he gains. Because where he is versus where he gets to in the matter of time that he gets there, like that step is just it's the reason he's going to be a top 5 pick. It doesn't exist elsewhere.
So the get off drill that you see a lot, I mean, you see it a ton in high schools, you still see it in college, where they kind of have the dummy up there and you're going from ground to high. This is the reason that happens, because what you're saying is hand in the ground, and how does he get right here instantly?
And just the ability to slide the body a little bit, use the strength of the right arm with the swim move. It's unstoppable, borderline unstoppable.
And then, again, that's a good offensive line for Kentucky.
Yes, that he dunked on a majority of this game. We were looking at a clip with Nolan last week, and it was him who made the play on the interior. But when you think about this and we look at positively graded, so PFF grading scale, the raw grades themselves, like every play. So every player gets a grade that goes from either +2, which is like the greatest ever play, the Ringo pick 6 kind of deal, given the importance, or the Eli Manning to Mario Manningham throw and catch in the Super Bowl kind of thing, to -2, where it's, give up the worst play ever that, loses the game kind of thing. But for the most part, players, there's a lot of what's termed zero grade, but you also have, increments of 0.5, so 0.51, 1.5. But just in looking at positively graded plays, he was second on the team behind Stetson Bennett. Stetson had like 240 more snaps than him, and throws the ball a lot and has the opportunity to get a lot more positively graded plays than Carter. It's just his dominance and that level is just unheard of.
It's kind of funny how this particular play works out, though. Obviously tied in on the right side here. So Georgia attacks kind of the same direction the whole time. Kentucky ends up putting 2 guys right here, and then it's one-on-one with Carter in a lot of space. It's really all of this space. And then center goes up and tries to get to the second level, and it leaves Devontae Wyatt, working one-on-one over here. I mean, quickly, it just blows up.
Yep, no chance. No chance. And Carter made a couple other plays in this game where it was just, I know one where he hit the quarterback, a quick pass rush move. He was dominant in this game. His 2 highest graded games, individual games, Clemson and then the national championship. So when it mattered the most, he was at his best.
Now, I will say, if a team has Jalen Carter in front of them, right here, and they leave this much space in between their center and their guard, I'd say it's a pretty good chance Jalen Carter is going to try to do that.
Yes.
So maybe play a little bit tighter if he's in front of you.
Understand what they're doing to you just as much as anything else.
So we get to
we had to throw in one sort of minus, right? One negative.
But it's really not on him. I think it's coaching.
Yes. This is one where we file this away and we write down, never again do I call this with this player.
I even put a slash through this. Don't do this.
Yes. Ever.
This is now illegal if you are a Georgia coach. And we talked about this after the SEC championship game, where Georgia was trying to contain to prevent a Bryce Young run, but all they did was give him way more time. and then put a slower person in the open field tracking him because you were having defensive linemen essentially spy, which, okay, I guess in certain scenarios, but you're probably not beating Alabama doing that. And you saw in the national championship, they didn't do this.
Well, and a lot of it, I would bet a lot of it, they thought, all right, I'm going to get the free rusher. I'm going to confuse Alabama's line, who had struggled mightily in the couple weeks before that, to get the free rusher. And it just didn't happen. Their line had the game of their season that night. But again, file this under, never again, don't do it at all. If you see him dropping into coverage, please tell me you didn't purposely do that.
It's as simple as Jalen Carter needs to go this way and not this way.
100%.
And that's why I'm a good analyst at football.
I mean, it's not hard sometimes, right? That guy's really good and beats people all night long. And there you go.
And look, some people might say, well, I mean, if he's such a good athlete, if he's the number whatever pick, what can he make this play? The fact that he comes that close tells you how good of an athlete he is. How many defensive tackles are doing this to try to chase down a fast quarterback?
Shuffling, jumps in the air, and still almost gets to him.
He got a hand on him, I think.
Yes.
Now, I did say before, I think Trayvon Walker, if he's the one dropping back, probably makes the play.
Potentially,
Trayvon Walker's a little faster than Jalen Carter.
Yes.
And they'll both be in the league a long time.
I wholeheartedly agree with that one.
So I don't know whose call that is. But the Kirby thing, don't do it.
Never again.
If it was Dan Lanning, I don't know how you got a head coaching job after you did that.
Never
if
again.
it's Will Muschamp, enjoy your Sakura or whatever. I think he likes Sakura, the Japanese restaurant, I think. Never again. We're outlawing this. Brent and Dayne said so. And so obviously they watch and listen and take what we have to say to heart. Why wouldn't they?
As they should.
No, they don't. That's fine. Special teams. We know what this is. This is national championship. Big players make the big time plays in the big games. And this is the biggest stage. And this is almost, I think, one of the forgotten plays of the national championship, because who knows how the momentum swings if this field goal is good.
Yep. Because right after it, what happens? The next play, right? The next play is Cook's run. Mm-hmm. But again, you look at really all of these guys that we've shown on this list that aren't, offensive linemen and/or Stetson at QB. They're making an impact on special teams. Nolan Smith in the last video, punt block. Like Carter here, field goal block, and he's always there. Dan Jackson making plays. I think Lassiter is going to be a big-time special teams player this year as well. I mean, we saw Kelee Ringo on special teams in various instances. So, no matter how good you are, you're going to play on special teams, and you might as well go make an impact.
Let's look at this protection again, because you see this cluster over here, which, that's fine. That's to be taught that way. Where is the most amount of space that someone can occupy and try to get a hand on this football? It's right here.
Yep.
And that's where Jalen Carter goes. So Georgia's got to put Jalen Carter in a spot to succeed there.
And that trio with him, Wyatt, and then Davis just pushing and then getting Pauls up. I mean, it worked on multiple occasions over the past couple of years.
Here. He's so good about contorting his body, upper body away from his hips in so many ways to affect the play. There's not a lot of football players that can do this. There's a lot of guys that can throw their hand up in the air in kind of a vertical setting, but how many twist their body in this way to get an angle here to have a chance? Some people can do it. Some people can do it well. Jalen Carter does it all the time.
Hashtag athlete. Big time athlete.
Don't verbal hashtag me. I mean, you do what you want to do. I'm not your boss.
Nah.
Roddy is, and he pays us. So he pays us to do this and make fun of each other. And if people want to sponsor us, make fun of each other, they can do that too.
Hey, 100%. I may have got some on that a little bit, sort of, today.
Well, tell me after the show.
We're rolling.
Tell me about my money after the show, please.
This was fun, though, because it's fun looking at great players do their thing. It's for me one of the reasons that I thoroughly enjoy the NFL, watching the NFL playoffs just as a fan of football, because you watch the quarterbacks, just like the game last year with Mahomes and Allen going back and forth. That's just the game at its best. And when you watch great players like Carter do their thing, it's fun to watch. But I do think there's two big sort of issues that worth discussing about him. One, I put on the website today 5 defensive predictions. Had some 5 offensive predictions the day before. But one of the predictions on defense was that Jalen Carter would play over 500 snaps. Now you think, oh, that's not that big of a number. Well, guess what? It's not happened since Kirby Smart was hired at Georgia.
They rotate a lot.
Because of, it's the hallmark of what they do, right? The rotation along the defensive line. Now some edge guys, Trayvon, DeAndre Walker, Low Carter, and Bellamy, they have played over 500 snaps, but it's not a lot more than that. But Trenton Thompson was the closest in 2016. That was his first season, so he didn't have the depth. He got, I think, to 480. But Carter has averaged 27 snaps a game in his career. To get to that 500 number, he's going to need to be in the upper 30s or even close to 40 snaps a game. And I think they're going to need him to play that many snaps a game for the majority of the season, if not more, in a lot of games.
I'm going to disagree with you there because I think Georgia, the schedule's so simple and easy. And maybe I'll eat those words right now as I'm saying this on August 3rd. Man, if you get up 4 touchdowns, and it's fourth quarter, Jalen Carter doesn't need to be out there. You have
I
other
agree.
guys that need that playing time.
But I think he's going to be on the field early in the games. I don't think you're going to see him rotating a bunch. I think he's just going to be consistently on the field, and they're going to, on third down, and I think that's the second point with him is how do they use him this year? He is their ultimate sort of trump card on defense. Last year, it was having all those guys plus what you had with Nakobe, Quay, and Tyndall as blitzers. This year, I think it's him along the defensive line that is just that ultimate trump card. And we saw it some in the spring game where he's on the edge some in a pass rush situation. I think he's only had 13 snaps as an edge player in his career. I think you're going to see a lot more of that. I think you're going to see them use, knowing that he's going to get double teamed, knowing that all the attention is going to come his way, that he's just going to be that ultimate trump card that I'm going to go play wherever it is that I want to and use kind of all along the defensive line.
I could see that being the case, that they ends up playing, especially if they move him around more than, they didn't have to this past season. That they had so much depth and talent and first-round guys. Some of that may emerge this year. There may be some guys that we don't know a whole lot about yet that you see them come along on that defensive line. Historically, though, with a guy like Carter, and you're probably going to see this a bit with Bowers too, the 2 next steps that coaches, especially Kirby Smart, likes to see. One, are you putting in the work to play even more? Be the leader out there with
the leadership part of it.
But then also, are you leading your unit? And I'm not saying that's a challenge for Jalen Carter, but that's not something he's had to do yet. And just because of how amazing he is at the game of football, that's naturally something he's going to gravitate to. I actually think he and Stetson Bennett probably come into this season with pretty similar tasks. Now, which is crazy because their production, kind of their ways to get to this point to be the leaders of their units is a bit different. You could probably say the same for Carter and Brock Bowers have a lot of similarities going into this season of you're going to get all the attention and maybe you haven't gotten that before. How do you handle it?
Yeah, I think you're going to see him double teamed more than he's ever been double teamed before.
At minimum, he's getting more chips and releases and then someone else there. I don't think you'll see many running backs. I was going to say do like the Clemson guy did and just move out of the way, although you might see that. But I don't think you'll see running backs that aren't assigned to him as much, I guess is what I'll say.
Well, and you'll see centers turn his way more versus pass rush. Hey, they'll always versus, hey, let's identify the Mike backer to which way we're going to turn. All right, let's identify where Jalen Carter is because we're going to help to him. And then everybody else kind of work the other side, which, by the way, you as a defensive coordinator, if somebody does that, now you use that to your advantage. But he's going to command a lot of attention because he's really stinking good at this game.
Yeah. And then that opens up a lot of things for the Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins of the world, the Nazir Stackhouse, the Nolan Smith off the edge. He can probably release a little bit harder, get that first foot in the ground faster. He can, if he's got Jalen Carter beside him on a side and he knows he's going to get that attention, then Nolan Smith will be a one-on-one on the edge, which is a good matchup.
And that was actually one of my other predictions on the defense, that I put Jamon Dumas-Johnson as the name, but basically a linebacker to me will probably lead this team in sacks because of the attention that him and Nolan will get. I think they use that to their advantage. And plus, when you have young guys playing linebacker in a when in doubt situation, what is it easier to have them do, especially early in the season? Just go sick the QB versus, read, react, do that, sit back, that kind of stuff.
If you see this list scrolling at the bottom, all of the videos where we feature these players is on our YouTube channel. So you can just search. If you're watching us on YouTube right now, Georgia Bulldogs football, you can search UGA Sports. You can search top returning Bulldogs. You can search our names, and they'll pop up there. Or you can search those players' names. They should be up there pretty early. So that's a feature on every one of these guys. We have 2 left in our list. And again, we're doing this based off of players that graded 70 or higher for the most part. There's a few that sample size, whatever. And we wanted the sample size to be high enough that we had to include it. 2 left. We all know one's Brock Bowers. I'm going to be curious to see if our audience can figure out who the other one is.
I mean, what's interesting about it is I've seen some of the comments on the previous videos, and like based on who wasn't there, they thought, hey, is this person in the top 3? And no, they weren't.
Yeah.
So
maybe some surprises.
Chip on my shoulder there thinks Beal will get double-digit sacks this season. Mr. Feinberg, who's watching on Facebook, thank you for watching, by the way, thinks we might see some Kenny Mack next.
We'll see. You'll have to stay with us to find out. I've already given you that Brock Bowers is up there, although that's not the greatest tease in the world. I think anyone with an eyeball can figure out that Brock Bowers was he's number 1 on this list, y'all. I think I've said it since we started doing the list. I gave away number 1 early. Brock Bowers is number 1 on this list. You'll have to see who's number 2. And that's
still gonna be fun talking about him too.
Yeah, that's what we'll wrap up and make that happen. Thanks, everybody, for watching here on UGAsports.com. You can follow along our coverage as fall camp starts. Go over to UGAsports.com, join in. Will Dickerson says, it's time to be a dog. Trenton, Georgia. Okay, it is time to be a dog.
It's go time.
Title defense, right? I went and rewatched some of the celebration videos of fans from the title game that's on our YouTube page, and that's a fun ride, too. All right, everyone, thanks for watching. That's Brent Rollins. I'm Dane Young. We'll be back next week with our number 2, and then we'll wrap up with the Brock Bowers at number 1. We've really enjoyed this series, but the season's arriving, so we're getting set to turn that page, but we have a little bit of work to do to complete our list. We'll see you next time here on UGAsports.com.